In less than a decade, all vehicles in Washington state must be electric. The governor recently signed a bill banning non-EV cars by 2030. It applies to anything sold, purchased, and registered within the state. Well, President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Geoff Cooper, joins us now with further perspective on the matter. And Geoff, as always, thanks for your time here today. Could you give us just a bit of background on this bill and what it means, of course, both for biofuels and also agriculture as a whole?
Yeah, well, good morning, Janet, and thanks for having me. And you're right, Governor Inslee signed a bill late last week that effectively says all vehicles that are bought, sold, or registered in the state of Washington must be electric vehicles starting in 2030. And we've seen similar bills or executive orders issued in other states. And while it is alarming, we think these sorts of bills are aspirational. These governors are really trying to send a message. But when you kind of peel back the onion, these bills are extremely short-sighted. They're completely impractical, and they're completely unnecessary. Supporters of this bill say that Washington state needs to mandate electric vehicles because they need to reduce greenhouse gas emissions and fight against climate change. Well, there are other ways to do that are more practical, more economical. And we think the most obvious and the lowest cost way to reduce greenhouse gas emissions is to use more ethanol. We already have ethanol in the marketplace today that reduces greenhouse gas emissions by about 50% compared to gasoline on average. And our member companies have pledged to go further than that. We've pledged to go to zero emissions for ethanol by 2050 or sooner, and many of our member companies are well on their way to doing that already. So we think rather than mandating electric vehicles that consumers may or may not actually want, we should be focusing on policies that simply require the desired greenhouse gas reductions and then step back, get out of the way, and let the marketplace figure out the most economical and consumer-friendly way to achieve those reductions.
Geoff, do we know how this legislation might also apply to agriculture equipment in the state?
That part really isn't too clear yet. It does appear that this is focused mostly on light-duty vehicles, so passenger cars and pickups. It isn't clear whether they are thinking about off-road, construction equipment, agricultural equipment. There are some incentives and other things in the bill for things like electric watercraft and ferries, ferry boats, but it isn't clear exactly what this mandate applies to. We think it would provide some sort of exemption for off-road equipment because that stuff is much harder to electrify. But that part isn't too clear yet.
All right. Well, Geoff, thanks for your insight. President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Geoff Cooper, on the phone with us today out of St. Louis. Go online to ethanolrfa.org for more information.